He didn't call you.
They
Only
didn't
matched
call
the
me.
story he told.
We're up. All right, we will call the meeting to order. Anyone want to start us with a word of prayer? I can do that. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this group gathered here this evening. We ask that you would guide us in the decisions we make and show us where we can make the best ones, and bless this time and everybody have a safe trip home. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. We have the agenda. Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So
Motion by Baker,
seconded.
seconded by Whalen. All in favor?
Mr. Chairman,
Aye.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to amend the agenda.
Oh.
I'd like to move 7.2 to 7.1 and move 7.1 down to 7.2, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor
Of the amendment.
of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll move on to approving the agenda as amended.
Okay.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. All right. Review and approval of meeting minutes from January 6th. Questions or motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Brand, second by Baker. Any questions? All in favor then signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have claims this evening of $181.71.
Take it.
Motion to approve claims. Payment of claims. Motion by Baker, second by Brand. Any discussion?
I think we're gonna have to get Doug involved in this quandary.
Yeah.
That's $7.
All electric.
Ridiculous.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to 6.0, public comment. Mr. Yogers, please introduce yourself.
Anywhere, right here.
Yeah, that's fine. You can sit there for right now if you'd like.
All right, Larry Jokers, District F, County Board. What I'm gonna talk about, I believe the majority of my constituents probably will agree with me. And that's about DEI. So, nothing personal here, but on August 13th, Tim Whalen and I, with the chairman's okay, we talked with Andrea about it. Had a conversation about some of the DEI things we saw on their website. Had a lot of concerns with that. We had a very nice conversation with it. And I believe Chairman Helms talked with you last week, also about that same conversation. Things are changing in the country. We had Executive Order 14173 signed by President Trump on January 21st, 2025. There's going to be a bunch of policy changes coming out here in the next 120 days or so. And part of that is, it looks like there's going to be anybody that, like colleges or anybody taking federal money, is not going to be able to be promoting DEI. And it probably will violate any applicable federal anti-discrimination laws. And so that's coming down the pipeline, and some of that is in effect a little bit right now. So with that said, Friday, February 7th, there was a Highland meeting that they put on at the Greater Freeport Partnership. I don't know why they couldn't have had it out there on their own, but we support GFP with county tax money, and we vote on that every year. And the other thing is Highland, they shouldn't be wasting their tax money on this kind of stuff either, because in my opinion, DEI is not a talent retention item, but in my opinion, people are gonna look elsewhere when they're looking for a job if they see that company promotes that stuff. Because in my opinion, that does not allow people to be equal based on character and ability, but rather some other metric that somebody else decides. And if you haven't noticed, both companies are going broke. And I think our money could be spent better. So, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no others, move on to reports to the committee. And start with zoning, because we moved that one up.
All right. I did not make a January deposit as I was out of the, I know, I'm sorry. I was out of the office with influenza A. So I made the deposit February 7th. That total deposit was $8,484.75. February was a very busy month for Nicole and I. We issued 5 final demand for correction of code violations. 2 have been fully corrected and 3 others are in the process of being corrected. If they are not corrected within the extended period of time we've given them, which is the middle of next week, they will then be issued a summons to appear before the administrative hearing officer in March, and that will be our first hearing. 5 no permit violation letters were issued, and all 5 have been resolved. I do have 4 special use home occupations that are running businesses right now that are in violation because they do not have their special use. I have sent out their letters of violation, but they've all come back to me, so I have to figure out how to get them. I might have to post a sign on the property. We are still conducting field work with inspections and completing occupancy certificates. That's an ongoing thing. Nicole and I are finally almost finished entering the zoning designations for all of our properties in unincorporated Stephenson County. We're hoping to have this complete by the end of February. Not sure now, since we found out that some of in the list that we had previous from Mr. Groves does include subdivisions. So we reached out to GIS for a list of all the subdivisions. He got it within 5 minutes for us, which was amazing. So we're still working on that. This has been very time consuming. It's a pain, but with our software, they didn't have our zoning classifications because it wasn't in our old software. So we have to enter that ourselves. Once we have that in there, we are hoping to do a zoning map. So like the city of Freeport has a map where you can go online, look up your address or something else, and it'll say what it's zoned. Here, realtors, anybody that wants to know what something's zoned, they have to call into our office. We have to go into the front office and open up the Sidwell maps, find it, and then call them back. With it being in our system or on a map, it'll be so much easier. Nicole and I also met with Todd Weekends. He is with First Mile Development, and Brittany Schaff with I Own Renewable Energy, Eolus Energy, to discuss the Winnebago County, Stephenson County wind farm. This farm could extend from approximately east of Springfield Road to south to Montague Road and north to Highway 20 to south of River Road. Plain as mud, right? If you want a map, I have them in the office. This would also extend into Winnebago County, so it'd be a joint county venture for them.
Basically Silver Creek Township.
Yes. Yep.
If you're.
Yeah. We had a conference call with attorneys David Vogt and Eric Warneman to discuss our code revision, and that's going well. They want to put a hard date as when we will have everything with the holidays and everything with them, and big case that they've had, it's been kind of on the back burner, which is fine, but they're going to put a hard stop date when we'll have the revisions. Nicole and I also met with Andrea Schultz-Winter and John Bosco with the Greater Freeport Partnership, and we discussed the 1.5 mile buffer around the city of Freeport, as well as looking into grant opportunities with updating our 25-year-old land use map. That is something that really needs to be done, but it's very costly. So that was discussed, and we stay in contact with pretty much weekly now. Yep. So it's great. 2 separate parcels were signed out, parcel splits were signed off on this month. One being a new parcel for the city of Freeport's well number 12. That parcel is at the rear entrance of Crate Park. If you're going around the curve to the west, it's the parcel right where the driveway is, off to the right there. They split off approximately 7 acres. They want to annex that into the city. I reached out to our state's attorney last week. I have not heard back with him yet because I've never done an annexation in the 9 years I've been here, so I don't know the protocol through the county, if there is any. So I'm waiting to hear back from Carl on that. The other split was just a homestead off of a farm. And then in 2024, we issued 85 building permits, 32 farm plan permits, 12 fence permits, 6 sign permits, 112 solar permits. That includes the commercial grade solar and homes, and 5 telecommunication permits and 1 temporary use permit. That's all I have.
Can you say that again, the home permits? Because that's what I wanted to ask you about.
The building permits,
Yes.
85 building permits, which those are the ones that are, we charge a fee on. Farm plans, we do not. Excuse me, so there were 85 building permits and 32 farm plans.
So 85 building permits would include a pole barn, it would be
Correct.
anything that constitutes a building,
Correct.
10 by 10 shed.
10 by 12 and up, yes.
Unless it's farm, though.
Right, unless it's farm, and then they get a farm plan, and there's no fee on that, 40 acres or more, and it has to be a working farm.
How many building permits did we have in 2023?
You know, I was just trying to run that, what's it called?
Statistics.
Yes, thank you. Off the, our software today, and I could not get it to come up, but that is one that I'm looking to run, so I can get you those numbers.
I think last month you made the mention that permits were as slow as you can remember them
Yes.
being in your tenure here.
Yep, yes.
So
So, uh,
On the wind farm, what stage is that at?
That is in the land acquisition phase. So they have, I think he said they just had another open house in Winnebago. They had one before, and I couldn't make the Winnebago one because I was ill. I think they're 95% complete. Don't quote me on that, but I think they're 95% complete with land. They always like to get some more in case a landowner does back out, but they're pretty full on their leases now.
Don't they realize, I mean, at the federal level, they're talking about eliminating wind farms completely across the country
Right,
because they
yeah.
are such a waste of money?
I don't know. I'm just
I mean, is
here for
anybody-
them to apply for it, and we have to take care of it in office, and then the board has to approve it. So that's all once they,
But we don't have a say in the matter, right? I mean, the state, if they meet all the state requirements, we're not gonna be able to thwart that effort,
Yep.
correct?
no, they have to come in for their special use. So that brings money to the general fund. And they have to come in, and we have to notify all adjacent landowners they can come in and object. But I have a speech I say at the beginning of each ZBA meeting that is for wind or solar. And, more or less say our hands are tied. If they meet all the state requirements, they have to be approved, but we have to hold this meeting. I like holding the meeting because then they work with the adjacent landowners. The adjacent landowners know what is coming. Because if they don't have this meeting, some adjacent landowners would never know. And with the solar, we did not do one solar last year, which was, we did not have a ZBA hearing for solar at all last year.
No, they were all done though, because they're
Who?
still, well, no, I
Well,
mean,
I've
previous,
got-
'cause I know
Probably 3 more in the pipeline for this year already.
there's one just getting built.
Yeah.
all kinds of them being built.
Oh, yeah.
so-
Yeah, but we didn't have an application for a new one.
I mean, solar, I get to a degree, but wind farms are such a waste
So
of resources. So,
my question would be, is Ogle County found a way to stop that?
There's going to be litigation on that as well.
But they found a way to stop it.
Right. And they also upped their fee for solar, I believe, to like
It was
$100,000.
25 and they raised it to 100.
Right, and that is going to
there you
be,
go.
that will still be sued. Other counties in Southern Illinois did that, and they were sued because it's not a reasonable amount. Ours is 5,000 per megawatt, so it's still comparable. They're 5 megawatts, so right there,
Who decides what's reasonable?
government,
The judge,
yeah.
if it gets to lawsuit,
I know, because Bogle had a cap.
The attorney will have
They
to
charge
charge.
more than
Right.
25.
another attorney will have an opinion, and a judge will decide.
Right.
But what is then, when you have the 20-acre solar facilities and they're charge from ComEd to join the grid. Right now, am I right? It's $1 million right now?
I have nothing to do with any of that, so I
Right, I
don't know.
know.
So I honestly don't know. My job is to get the permit, make sure they are abiding by everything, that I have everything that they're supposed to have, bring it to this committee, bring it to the ZBA, and then bring it to the county board. That's, unfortunately, that's all I'm supposed to do. And I can't, and if we deny, it's an automatic lawsuit, no matter what. So,
Unless they don't want to spend the money on a lawsuit.
oh, they will. They will.
But somebody needs to help me understand how they're making money on this. Because if it's not coming out of the taxpayer's pocket.
They have
I don't
backers.
Well, it is yet.
But Steve, they gotta generate enough electricity to make money off of it sooner or later. I mean, these wind farms, you go 15, 20 years, those things start breaking down and then they just leave them. It's an eyesore. It's the most ridiculous thing on the planet Earth. It's not
But then we
saving
boil
anybody
back
anything.
down to
And I have-
landowner rights as well. I mean, our wind has saved some family farms,
Well, wind on a general basis, I think you could run a wind tower for a farm operation by itself, like a self-contained entity, just like solar, I think. would be
Right, but I'm
better off
saying the
doing
payments from the company to the
I
farm.
get that, but where's it coming from, Beth? It's still coming out of the taxpayer's pocket at some point because it's all being subsidized. It's all at some level, right? These things are not self-sustaining. You look at the numbers. I've looked at enough of them. It doesn't pay for itself. So where's the money coming from? It's
That
coming out of our
unfortunately is
pocket.
not
Sooner or
in my
later.
wheelhouse.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm sorry.
It's not, again, solar has enough efficiency at this point where I can see some justification in that. If it's land that's not being used for something more valuable, like producing food. But these wind farms are an absolute joke. And it's something we should fight like crazy against, I think, as a county. It's not something we should be trying to bend over backwards to support. And if that hurts somebody on the farm because they're not getting a $10,000 payment for popping one of these things in,
Oh,
I'm
it's
sorry. but
upwards of 25 plus.
well, whatever it is now. Still, that's not a reason to charge everybody else in the state money to support that, which I think is what's going on at some level. Somebody's, there's a lot of backroom deals I think going on with it too. But anyway, I don't believe it's something we should be supporting.
At the Farm Bureau level, we haven't seen that 95% in Stephenson County.
Yeah.
That number is more in Winnebago County, because that's where a lot of that's gonna go eventually. We haven't had the meetings yet where we usually have a lot of questions, and our staff comes in and works with them on the leases to make sure things are written. But the other thing you have to be careful is the thing that makes our country, as you talk about country, the thing that makes our country what it is that I have the right to do with my property what I want to do with my
Agreed.
property.
Understood.
And when government comes in and says, you can't do that because we don't like it, now you're gonna mess other things up. And that individual property rights are what make our country work.
I agree 100%, but when you take an individual property rights and turn it into a commercial operation on a multi-site setup like this, it takes on a different entity, right?
And we
So,
have that issue in a
some-
lot of places where we turn private utilities into public entities to allow them to put in transmission lines, to allow them to put in, and then you say, oh, well, we can't have that we need to have that transmission line because we need more power, because as a group of people, we never use less, we just want more. And then the public whines when a landowner says, no, I don't want that going through my land. No, I don't want that CO2 pipeline in my property. So it's a real slippery slope when you start to
Well,
look at it that
again,
way.
if it's something that a private company is investing in and working with that landowner on, fine, go ahead. If you want to throw your money down the drain, that's great. But when this stuff is all subsidized to the level that it is from taxpayer dollars, I can't buy off on that. I don't think that's right to charge everybody here or,
The tax revenue.
But we do that here.
I understand, but
We
I'm
do
just
that
saying.
here.
You know, the tax revenue for the county on the wind and the solar is substantial,
I get it.
you know, so that brings in a good chunk.
But that's how they make it work.
Right,
School districts want it, fire departments want it.
Right.
Counties want it. Those are all part of it. I agree, Tim, with you, but
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
can I
sir.
ask an unrelated
Yes, sir.
solar wind question? Can you talk about the annexation again, please?
yes. So they want to annex in that parcel,
City of Freeport.
correct. I have reached out to Mr. Larson via email for advice on how to proceed, because I'm not seeing anything in our code. Doesn't mean there isn't anything in there that I'm missing, but in my 9 years I've been here, I've never had where I've been asked about annexation.
By the city?
Correct.
Is it adjacent to the city boundary?
Yes,
Excuse me.
yes.
I'm not aware of anything that we have to do. And the city
Can do it.
took in all kinds of property
Right,
a few years
Right,
ago.
but I've been asked by Nick Grindy with Fair Graham on the city's behalf.
Hmm,
So I just want to cross our Ts and dot our
I
Is.
just wonder why. I'm not suggesting that you're
Right.
not doing it, just
Right,
something doesn't seem.
so
I
I'm
mean, it's a
just.
different city manager. I know it's Lowell Crow,
Mhm.
when the other annexation.
Yeah, when the
took
other
place,
annexation
but
happened,
The owners and the property owner to fight.
but who are we were discussing the levels. It should be county, municipality. Wasn't John bringing something up like that? He was just shocked how,
In terms of the process to go through for annexation,
yes,
typically, then you have property owners that won't have, one way or the other, they might fight it. I know that was the issue when they annexed in a lot of the donut holes.
yes, yeah. So I'm just waiting to hear back from Carl and I've let them know, I've let Mr. Grindy know, and
Does
I'm
the
just,
property owner want to be annexed in?
I have no contact. I would assume, well, they're parceling off 7 acres of a larger parcel. So it would be that parcel, the 7-acre parcel that would be annexed in. But that's
Are they
all
developing it
zoned,
for housing or something?
no. It's 7 acres for the new city well.
Oh, I see.
Yes, well number 12.
So is it just farm?
Yes, it's farm land right now. It extends all the way up to 26 South, that big field.
Okay.
And that is zoned residential, actually.
Because that was partitioned off of that. There's this
Parts
few
of that.
houses, yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else? Any other questions?
I have one,
Yes, sir.
kind of one. Can you discuss the 1.5 mile buffer? I'm not up to speed with
Sure. Usually, I know for wind and solar, if there's anything within 1.5 miles of any municipality, we always have to notify them, of course. And with the new state statute, the city can say, no, we don't want it. They can also annex it in, and they then do the permitting for that. And then the 1.5 miles is just to work with Greater Freeport Partnership, the city of Freeport, for any type of expansion businesses may have that may be in the city but want to expand out into the county, so we'll work together with that.
But we have to make sure that buffer zone doesn't become a line to something,
Correct.
because that's always been a concern in the community about Millrace Crossing.
Mhm.
It's not contiguous.
Right.
Is their 1.5 mile buffer zone gonna consider that to be contiguous?
That is something I will need to discuss with you.
I don't think so currently where the city boundary is, and if you went out 1.5 miles, you wouldn't hit mill race.
That's true, yeah.
The city doesn't own the airport?
Does.
Yeah.
Does, I guess, if you were, but it's also
I'm
not,
just saying.
it's also not
I know that that's
contiguous
been-
considered, to be, that's interesting, yeah.
That's a good point.
Did you get your question answered, Mr. Britt?
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll go back to 7.1.
All right.
Andrea.
All right, thank you. I would just echo, yeah, it's a great working relationship, and any effort that we can help with in getting the zoning map that is online would be fantastic, because I know that is information that we look for often.
Right.
And so it's very helpful. A couple of good news items. We've been in contact with a company called RVL Metals. They have publicly announced they have purchased the HB Plastics building. This is on Route 75. HB Plastics is still there and operating, but they are going to be using some of that facility for distribution. They're a stainless steel manufacturer. They also are looking to eventually add on to that building or build an additional structure, kind of working through the plans right now, so that they can bring in manufacturing. Timing on all of that will depend a little bit on tariffs and regulations, but we have been in contact with them around the enterprise zone, which they're already in, the enterprise zone, which is great. Also the foreign trade zone. We will be holding an informational seminar Thursday morning at 7:30 for businesses. This is around businesses taking advantage of the foreign trade zone if they're currently importing raw goods for their business that could be of benefit to them. So they're going to attend that. We also did receive word that we were awarded, DCEO has put together a site readiness grant, planning grant, and we were awarded that. So that money will allow us to work with consultants, as well as cover some staff time to do the due diligence around greenfield site development. We are targeting in some existing industrial corridors and how those could be expanded and what it would take to get utilities to the site, soil conditions, so on and so forth. So we always know that greenfield site development is something that we need for existing businesses here to expand as well as to attract other businesses. So we're excited to go rolling on that work, and we had just an email from the grant manager. As in everything that comes from the state, you're awarded and then you go through a slow 6 to 8 week process to actually go through the process to get that award and the budget and everything set up in their system so that you can actually start the work. So we're anxious to get started. We've been busy submitting some sites, including Mill Race, as well as some existing buildings to Intersect Illinois. John has been very helpful on getting anything that is available on their site, so that it is presence top of mind for any companies that are looking in the Intersect Illinois staff. So there are 3 current RFIs that we have fed information to and responded to, and they've come back with some questions, which is always good to know that you're getting a second look. We've had some business retention visits with some of our food manufacturers out in rural Stephenson County. People are doing well. We're probably going to be looking at an enterprise zone application to expand the boundary around their facility to enable future development. That probably will not happen in 2025. They've already made some significant investments the past couple of years, but they're looking at future planning. So this would be a good time to incorporate some land that they've purchased into the zone. AutoSmart is the new business that has purchased what was formerly the Visitor Center. They hope to have a soft opening in April and be fully open for business in May. So we're glad to have another business occupying that space. Base Camp kicked off, but that's our entrepreneurship business development 2 weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago tomorrow. We'll have our second session tomorrow. We have a few more participants than we did last year, which is great to see the program grow. We have about 15 businesses that are in varying stages, from an existing business that are looking to kind of shore up some areas that they need some reinforcement in, to people who are just kind of kicking the tires, think that they might want to start a business. This is a great idea for them to go through the process of developing their business plan to see if that is something that they really want to do. So, and upcoming, we have business after hours this Thursday at Heritage Arrow out at Albertus. And then on the 22nd, a couple Saturdays from now, we will have Arctic Ale and Art Walk. And one other thing, if you don't mind, I appreciate you sharing your thoughts. And I know I reached out to Mr. Whalen late last week around the presentation that was put on by Highland. Highland did receive a grant from the Illinois Community College Board around creating a program that would talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. This would be targeted to businesses that were smaller in nature and probably couldn't afford their own training if this was something that they wanted staff or staff members to be a part of. The ask, they had to hold so many programs within their grant execution period. There was an ask from Highland that if we would host one for our business membership. We had opened it up. We talked about this internally. I had earlier in 2024 at some human resource roundtables, businesses talk about this issue being a challenge for them on their floor. They understand that the nature of their workforce is very diverse. It just is in terms of age, race, sex. And so with that, sometimes comes difficulty in terms of communication and dealing with conflict. And so they were looking for resources that could help them as HR professionals, as well as management staff, middle level managers, to help address some of these things for their workforce. So as our mission around economic development is definitely supporting the businesses we have here. We're going to try to do that in as many ways as needed, from offering a seminar in foreign trade zone to a DCEO grant seminar about a small business development grant that we hosted as well. And that because this was something that was brought up by businesses, this program from Highland. So I appreciate your sharing your thoughts. I understand that isn't what you want to see. And I think that isn't our focus, but serving our businesses is really our focus. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that or anything I mentioned previously about economic development activity. But I do appreciate both speaking with you earlier, and I hope that we always know that I'm a phone call away. You know where my office is. I appreciate any county board member who would want to reach out and have a conversation.
I would just say, Andrea, you guys do such an amazing job with so many things. You really are doing a great job with just general economic development. To get into the fray of things like that are controversial is really not necessary. I would encourage you the next time that happens, just push back to Highland and say, look, if you guys want to do this, host it. You can encourage the businesses that have a concern with it to go out to a meeting room out there. And it doesn't appear that you as a organization are supporting that as an ideal. And again, it's a controversial thing, whether we agree with it or not, or what have you. It's just not something, I don't know. I mean, on the flip side, I could say, well, what if we had a group that did Christian ministry, Christian counseling for employers and hosted that? I mean, some of your other folks might have an issue with that don't believe in that sort of thing. So it's just, to me, just kind of stay out of that fray would be more beneficial and not cause concern as far as those of us who want to support you with the county's tax dollars. Because you are doing such great work in so many areas. And if that makes sense,
It does, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. But because Highland, they got plenty of meeting space, unless I'm mistaken, out there. I've been there once or twice. There's a few rooms out there that would hold folks. So that was a surprise to me, because I think on the same page I saw in the newsletter, you had a reference to the Salvation Army, doing something. I can't remember what that was off the top of my head. And the newsletter.
They hosted a Rise and Shine.
Yeah, some breakfast or something. So I mean, again, but you were referring people to go there as part of the community. I get, but some of these things like DEI is just such a controversial thing. It just, to me, that particular issue might be better just to stay away from a private business standpoint. If there are concerns with it, refer them to people at Highland or somebody that is well versed in it, and they can organize something outside of what you guys' focus is. So that would be my only comment. I appreciate that. Having the dialogue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Andrea, I echo Mr. Whalen's thoughts completely, and thank you very much for making the effort to attend every one of our meetings. You did such a great job giving a report. We do appreciate all of that. And I couldn't agree more. I think you need to stay on the center line of these things. What is the number one mission for Greater Freeport Partnership? The number one.
Grow the local economy.
Economic development,
Yeah.
correct? So if it doesn't pertain to economic development, you can't do it. It's taking resources away from you, time, money, efforts. It's a distraction. And I don't believe that it passes. If you use that as your litmus test, I think you got it made. You know, you got everything here. But we get sidetracked on these things. And, you know, District I does not, the majority of our taxpayers do not believe in DEI. And if, you know, we believe in merit over other, I think Mr. George used the metric word, and that's where we're at. You know, I just think that there's a lot of words that get replaced in our language, and you know, we don't have used cars anymore, we have pre-owned, right? So I'm showing my age. But I think we would do a lot of good for ourselves if we took not-for-profit off and replace it with taxpayer-funded, donor-funded. We just need to keep that in mind because that's why we're here. Thank you.
All right. Moving on. Anybody else before we move on? All right. Soil and Water, I did attend their meeting this month. They're at the same place where a lot of organizations are in the federal government at this point, trying to get a feel for what direction things are going to be going. We've already pushed back in agriculture, the Farm Bill, and so they're working their way through how they're going to work with some of the programs that are available in agriculture. Also looking at, I would say, if you pay attention, Soil and Water does a great job of providing trees and ornamental shrubs. Their pamphlet always says, not for personal use. It's supposed to be like for, you know, windbreaks around the farmstead and all that, but they will sell anybody a tree. Just come in and get one. Other than that, they're working their way through the new programs for the year and trying to fill positions that they've had people move on from. So, no questions on that? Yes, sir.
So when do they do the tree sale and
It's in
the fish
April.
sale?
The fish sale, I don't know exactly.
Okay. Do they, is it on their website?
Yes,
As far
it
as the
is.
trees? Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Recreation and trails, I did not.
I went to the meeting.
Okay,
I'm on the commission again.
okay, so tell us about it.
They're still working on grants. They're always working on grants. And the only thing of any substance is they've received some new trail counting devices. I think 4 of them that they're going to put in strategic places. Maybe change out some of the ones they have now that aren't. They'll count. If you walk back and forth, they'll count every time you go past. They're hoping that these new ones will be a little more programmable where you can just get them maybe going one way or tell if it's a bicycle or whatever it is. They don't have the details on that, but they are going to put 4 more out somewhere along the trail. That's really the only thing that's of any news.
Okay. I did not get a chance to get a hold of Sam at Black Hawk Hills, so I don't have a report from him unless someone else does. Moving on to the chairman's report, I just had one thought as I look, this being February, and our committee is planning and development. Are there some things that you think we need to be looking at? One of the things that I have looked at, and I haven't pushed a lot, and I don't want to do that unless we are doing it as a group, but do we need to look at maybe having our own building instead of leasing all the time? Is that something that it's worth looking into, or is that a waste of time because we only take care of buildings in emergencies? But are there some things that we need to be doing and in the planning rather than always having to put fires out? What are some things we should be looking to do? Whether you had any thoughts on that, whether you had something that you felt was something we should be looking at.
It's a good thing to think on, Mr. Chairman.
Well, we can do that.
Yeah, I would really, I don't have anything right now, but yeah, something to think about for sure.
So,
Mr. Chairman?
yes, sir.
Okay, one thing, and I guess Andrea, this would be directed to you as well. Even though the county does not own Alberta's airport, I really believe that it's underutilized in our county. I would like to see some sort of use plan outside of the city of Freeport. I don't know if they really have much of a plan. I've talked to the mayor and I've talked to the city manager about it, and they have, they'd like to do more out there. One of the main things would be to get water and sewer out there. But I don't know if GFP has looked into that. They have a comprehensive plan. There's got to be a way to leverage that airport better than what we do currently. And the reason why I bring it up is because it is in the county. It's owned by the city of Freeport, but it's less than a mile from Millbrace. It's an asset that we've had for decades, and it's not in the best shape. But yeah, I would like to work with the city and try to find a better use for that and get it moving if we could.
If I may, a couple weeks ago, we had a kind of a site visit, a business retention visit, if you will, with Angie, and it was a cold day. We didn't tour the airport, but I know there's a hangar building that's been constructed and it's basically not being used. They're interested in any grants that could help them finish the inside of that building, what that would allow them to do. They would really have a lounge space. They would have offices. There would be a room that they could have instruction. It would offer more opportunities. They do get a fair amount of commercial, private planes that come in related to businesses here. And there's nowhere for the pilots to really stay while they're out there. So I think that there is opportunity, to the chairman's point. And as Rockford's airport gets busier and busier, I think it's an opportunity to lure other businesses to Albertus. That's how Heritage Aero ended up there. So I think there's opportunities. We'd be happy to look into and see if there's any sort of comprehensive plan around the airport. I've never seen one myself, but that doesn't mean they don't exist, so.
I would appreciate that.
And just one comment from the farmer in me. Our John Deere dealer here in Freeport, I don't know if you're aware of the expansion that they made, but it's no longer Prairie State Tractor, it's Heritage Tractor, and they're now part of a 40 dealership organization in several states. So they've made a big step in trying to capitalize on size, and that's kind of John Deere's plan anyway. They want multiple owners, multiple facilities, not just your local dealer anymore. But we have Sloan's in both Lanark and Monroe. There are about 26 facilities that they have, and this one has surpassed them quite a bit. There are some bigger ones in the country, but just an interesting bit of expansion or merger and acquisition type situation.
Their network runs all the way to Arkansas, right?
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on in the industrial world too, especially in the distribution arena. A lot of people getting beat up.
I don't think we have a report from the Transportation Focus Group tonight. So 8.0, I don't have any other business. Yes, sir.
I was gonna say, one that's not on here, if you don't mind me taking just a couple minutes, Mr. Chairman, we did meet, the other day, the, Reliable Communication Subcommittee, which actually reports up through this committee according to our planning session, a while back. And, myself, Mr. Jogerst, Mr. Townsend, and Mr. Monroe met, last Friday. And again, the focus around this is just to make sure there's high-speed communications available throughout the county, making sure our emergency management setup is sufficient for any needs that we may have. And we felt after looking at the matrix that we were looking at measuring, Mr. Jogers did a great job of mapping out all the different available resources within the county for high-speed internet. And so we had a baseline from there to go from, which is really nice. He shared that, as a matter of fact. And I think Georgie, did you get that to her? Or just the committee?
I'm talking to Nate.
That's right. We got to, talk to Nate first, make sure. And then I am tasked with talking with Greater Freeport Partnership to see if there's any efforts that you guys are working on in the city with regard to that. And then there's an outfit that bought the fiber setup from Blackhawk Hills. I still need to talk to Sam about that. I got a communication in a book from, I believe it's the outfit. It's called Surf Internet. And they're doing some fiber work right here in city, along with some other places throughout Illinois and Indiana. And so we're going to try and have some communication with them. Again, around the idea of making sure all of our citizenry has access to high-speed internet should they want it, and that's one of the main goals. The other thing, in talking to Mr. Townsend, some of the updates that have been made, there's the one thing that he mentioned was he and the sheriff are working on a new emergency management office in the courthouse for when, if and when there is an emergency that we need to take care of, they'll have a central point to communicate from and handle operations from. And once that's done, the sheriff and he are planning an open house potentially so people can come see it and we can make the public aware that he feels, and I think after talking about it as a subcommittee, that our emergency management setup within the county and also coordinating with the surrounding counties is in pretty darn good shape from where we were a few years back to where it is today. One of the other things he mentioned was a thing called My Text. I think he mentioned planning or our zoning department was using that already. iWork, is that what it's, I thought he said My Text or something, but it was some way
Text
that,
my gov.
yeah.
Text my gov.
It's the two-way communication through texting that you can distribute information to folks in the county, but also receive reports back in an emergency situation. So he was going to talk with, I believe, you and some other folks about that to see if there might be more of a countywide opportunity to utilize something like that, especially in an emergency basis. So,
And I know Georgia and I have attended a couple meetings with R1, and they have a lot of that data that you're talking about already laid out and have layers that they can lay over the county and show you what's available too.
Okay. Yeah, we saw one of those. I know we were looking at, I don't have my stuff with me tonight, but kind of a map similar to what you're talking about, where there's available spots for, directional Wi-Fi and cellular Wi-Fi, because the cell stuff's getting better all the time too. The capabilities of US Cellular, T-Mobile, and Verizon, and AT&T are all offering high-speed internet over their services now. So it's definitely making incremental improvements, especially.
Mr. Brandt's been trying to get it so he could farm from his living room.
There you go, man. Hey, tractor, go right. So anyway, but had a good discussion. We're going to meet again in April 4th, and just continue to try and move that ball forward.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Any
We'll get
questions?
that added to the agenda.
All right. No business, new business is special use permit. And I'll turn it over to you, Beth.
Yes, Mr. Molitor is requesting a special use to allow for a single-family dwelling in the Ag District. This property will be parceled off. He will not be taking any cropland out of production. Right now, it's a little grassy area with some trees. And they're family friends with the farmer. So no cropland will be taken out of use, and there have been no objectors.
Move to approve the special use.
I have a motion and a second.
I will second that.
Any discussion? With 2 acres, can they have a horse?
Anything that's ag, yes.
Okay, that was already zoned ag.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Any further public comment? Any one of you got a comment? No? Motion to adjourn? Have a motion and a
I'll
second.
second
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. Hopefully the Moloters don't have free range chickens that